So let me present you myself. My name is Dr. Andrius Grybauskas. I work in this project, IN4ACT, European Commission project at Kaunas University of Technology, where we do lots of really interesting research. And that research, some of it is concerned with circular economy, social sustainability, supply chain, digital stuff. And I personally, I am a big aspiring data scientist and economist as well, somebody who's working with machine learning, and I'm trying to help my colleagues there with all this stuff. And today, I was asked to do a presentation about a very interesting topic, a very serious topic, and it's called Industry 4.0 and the World of Work. Are the fears of full automation are justified? And I don't know how about you, but I read a lot of articles, and there's sort of apocalyptic view that AI is going to take over, and we're all going to get unemployed, and we're not going to have a salary and so forth. So there's a lot of fears going on, especially in the media, what I call pop media. And well, I not necessarily like this sort of approach. And with this presentation, my idea is clear up what is the scientific consensus, what is actually going on. Should we really be in fear? Is automation has really come to get us, or is just something that is overstated a little bit? All right, so just a second here. So here is sort of my plan for today. I actually made over 100 slides. I don't know, how long I will be able to talk. I know it's seminar for 1 hour, so we'll see how much I will be able to dig in. But it's really deep, because I really wanted to get to the answer of it. I really want to understand whether there is a fear from automation. So we have the following subsections of my presentation. So first, I'm going to give you a brief presentation of what kind of unemployment there are, so that you will not be confused about which one I'm talking about. Then I will talk about the history of technological unemployment, because if you can get some useful insights from the past, maybe you can prepare better for the future. Then we're going to talk, is this time different with the whole AI technology? And then we're going to discuss the following subsections, whether Industry 4.0 will increase number of jobs or decrease, or is going to just stay neutral, right? So this is sort of the agenda for today's presentation. And yeah, okay, so let's start. Okay, I have to press the button on my mouse. Okay, so there are many different types of unemployment, right? So the first one, and I'm going to run over them a little bit very briefly, right? The first one is frictional unemployment. So if you get unemployed, you get fired from your job, right? There's a time period, the time span in which you have to wait until you find a new job, because it takes time, right? So economists are not really worried about this kind of frictional unemployment. It's unavoidable. It's happening in every single country, and you can't really, do anything about it. It's something sort of a natural process of finding a new work. That's not a problem, right? So I'm not going to be talking about this one. There's another kind of unemployment that people mix up, is cyclical unemployment. That happens, when you have a recession, jobless people increase and the number of unemployed people increase. And this is highly related to, cycles, whether the economy is growing and whether the economy is going down. However, what I will be focusing today, I will be focusing on structural unemployment, right? So how is it different from cyclical unemployment? Well, the thing is, in cyclical unemployment, if economy is going up, the number of jobs are going up. But in structural unemployment, because people cannot provide value for employers, because people don't have enough skills to get a job. So despite if economy is growing or if economy is going down, people cannot find a job, and the unemployment is growing. So this is what we call a technological unemployment, right? There's a technological shock happening in a market. And because of that, there's a lack of skills and people cannot get employed. So this is where I will be focusing, the technological unemployment, and I don't want you to mix up with any frictional or cyclical unemployment. What I will be focusing is technological unemployment to you. All right. First of all, okay, history. Right, this is not the first industrial revolution. We had the first one, second, third one, and fourth. So maybe perhaps it is a good idea to look at our first revolutions and see what happened there. And perhaps there's some good insights that we can find ourselves and we can prepare better for the future. However, we immediately run into a problem. And the problem is that the unemployment statistics were collected starting from 1855 or 1800, right? So basically what it means, we don't have any data about Industrial Revolution first or Industrial Revolution second. And even if we had data, if we had data, we did not have any methodology to really dissect the causal inference. So this is sort of really a gray area. We have more data about today, and I will also be talking like very thoroughly about today. But I see a lot of people want to come in, and hopefully, if Remonte can help me, or Polis to accept everybody from the waiting room. Okay, thank you. So yeah, so this is sort of the problem. There's a lack of data here. Most of the data is here, so we don't really know what's happening. Despite the fact, we have historical writings, which is very interesting to read, and perhaps we can get some insights from them. So then I looked at historical literature of technological unemployment. This is what I found. Elizabeth I was sort of the first person which prevented patents for machines, right? So in other sense, there was a William Lee, an inventor, who came to Queen Elizabeth and says, look, I've invented this beautiful knitting machine that will increase productivity, that will increase efficiency. It is so great. And Elizabeth, rather than being excited about this technology, she got so scared. And she said, look, I cannot give you a patent because people might get unemployed. So this is sort of the first case historically that we have sort of a technological unemployment happen. The word was still not developed by there, but we can infer that this is what it is. A second person, Colbert, he was working in France in the government, and he also restricted use of machines in private companies because he wasn't fear that a lot of people might get unemployed. Right? There are incidents in Germany where workers revolted against the machines and attacked the machines, like the ribbon loom machines and weaving ribbons and lace trimmings, right? So after these sort of incidences, we have starting to see a lot more incidences regarding the machine and automation. We have in London, a mob succumbed a whole sawmill. We have in Everett where 100,000 of employees came in and burned down the whole, the shearing wool in the factory. We have a lot of other situations where we have 50,000 workers coming in and protesting and petitioning a lot of inventors and scientists because they're losing their jobs due to machines, right? So after all of these things, we start to see economists to be interested about technological unemployment. Before that, economists didn't really think that such things exist. So if you look, the first one was the Stewart, right? And he was the first to ask the question, is like the machine sort of prejudicial against population? But he was sort of a lonely wolf because like Adam Smith, who was really popular at the time, he asserted that you shouldn't be scared of machines. Unemployment is caused by high taxation rather than machinery. And there was a huge growth about compensation theory at that time. And I will talk about compensation theory and how it is powerful in economics later on. But sort of economists at that time neglected that technological unemployment might be a serious issue, despite some people getting frustrated, angry, or losing their jobs. However, so this is where is the inflection point for the economists is the Luddites. So if you don't know who were the Luddites, were people that were working in factories and they got unemployed due to machinery, and they are sort of the initial technofolks, if I may put it. And Luddites rage against the machine, burned down factories, and it got so bad that several thousand of troops had to be deployed by the English Queen, I guess at that time, to stop the whole movement, right? And by 1813, it sort of stopped. And I mean, it was so severe that English government even implemented a death penalty if you were a technophobe and belonged to a movement of Luddites who attacked the machinery. Now, obviously, Luddites, people who got employed, are in a very difficult situation because, what can you do? You either starve to death because you can't feed your family or yourself if you don't have any savings. You can be violent against your owners. So Luddites sort of took the lesser of the two evils and sort of attacked the machines, right? So this was sort of an inflection for economists. The economists started to say, okay, look, technological unemployment, it is real, right? It's not only the high taxation that causes unemployment, and we should be very careful about it. Now, Stuart Mill said, look, compensation theory is not perfect. Temporary things are at play. Technological unemployment can cause severe damage temporarily. Keynes even calls technological unemployment sort of a short-term disease, although he looked at technology as very as a great benefit for humanity. So this is where we start to see economists dig deep and start to analyze. So, and there's a lot of disagreement, confusion about the whole technological unemployment phenomena. Some of them say that it cannot cause permanent unemployment. It's sort of a short-term phenomena. Some of them again pushing back, saying the compensation theory will take everything and take care of everything and everything. Some say it's just an irritant short-term phenomena. But you sort of we have a recognition, right? You sort of have a situation where economists did not admit to a situation where economists start to see that, look, this is a real thing. We're making progress here. And even into moving to the third industrial revolution and fourth piece, even see like really prominent figures like Leontiev, who also got so scared about machines that said in the future the whole workers might be replaced by machines. And in the 1961, we have a New York Times magazine with a very strong header saying that, look, automation might end most unskilled jobs in 10 years. Like really stuff. This magazine at that time was really popular. And if you're a worker and you read something like this, you obviously should be really scared about yourself. And Lyndon Johnson, the president, even created a special committee of who gathered like best economists, scientists at that time, so that they would give him a consensus, their recommendation regarding the machines. And the commission was, again, they sort of admitted that technological unemployment exists. It can, make some problems temporarily on the short term. However, it eliminates jobs but not work. People need to qualify, and in the long term, everything should be good. So sort of the fears were dismissed at that time as well. And even Leontiev changed his presupposition that actually, automation will not cause a dramatic change in unemployment. People would switch their jobs. We still have some writings from like Rifkin Jeremy that, he sort of introduced the workless world because of the technology. And interestingly, we come to today, right? So if I could just break it down a little bit, we have a situation where nobody admitted technological unemployment. Then we have a situation where economists said, look, on short term, technological unemployment is real. And now we're coming to today, and there's so many articles, so many pub articles where everybody's overstating everything, from not believing to saying that, okay, we're all going to get unemployed. It's an apocalypse that's coming and we're not going to find any jobs or work. And there's so many books, and like if you read on New York Times and everywhere else, it's really scary, like scary articles. And people obviously, it creates anxiety about this issue, and sort of it might even mislead on government policies and other people as well. And so why is this fear so big right now? So the argument usually goes that all the industrial revolutions prior were sort of very simplified, repetitive machines that automate repetitive tasks. But today AI is coming into the domain of human creativity, right? And it's actually surpassing human ability in so many cases. So, for example, here this is a research paper done by Mr. Eric, and what he found out is that actually, if you look here, there's a discrepancy between a human eye's ability to recognize, to do image recognition, and the AI's ability. And by the time like 2015, we start to see that actually artificial intelligence is becoming better at recognizing images than human beings, right? You take other examples like this, what kind of things AI can do. It can recognize your clothing, and if you always wear a dark dress, then the recommendation engine sort of says that you should give you a recommendation to buy a red dress rather than a blue or a black dress. So AI is really developing so fast, and a lot of people are sort of again going into this sort of intuition that we might get unemployed, completely. And this is another great example that was done by Oxford, where they created AI that can read lips. Like a human lip reader has a 52% success rate, but AI was able to get to 93% success rate, and like really, really huge discrepancy of efficiency between AIs and humans. And this is something that was not able to be automated in Industrial Revolution 1 and 2. And AI is really spreading into all the industries, rather than just into manufacturing or knitting machines like in the 18th century in England. But we really start to spread into everything, into marketing, into finance, where you have risk management that automates all decisions of risk, and you can lay off a lot of people. Autonomous vehicle, drone technologies, security, retail. We sort of buy products and we don't need the cashier anymore. So this is like the new fears that's coming, and it is obviously there's the original test that is super scary for a lot of people. It's called the Turing Test, right? It's basically a test whether AI is better than human, whether you can recognize if it's a human or AI. And the test goes as follows. Now you have a person in the middle who has to communicate with a person on the right who is a human, and the person on the left who is a computer. And if this person cannot recognize which is who, then maybe AI has gotten to such point where it's on the sort of on the same stage, on the same level as a human being. And there's a GPT-3 engine that is created by Google. It is a natural language processing engine, and they did this Turing test, and you can look at these results, what they have achieved, and you can see that it asked AI, what is your favorite animal? And AI says, my favorite animal is dog. And this is like a really easy question for him or for her, whatever you consider AI, he or she. Anyways, but the next question was why, which is a lot more difficult because you have to give the arguments, you have to give statements why you think so. And, the AI answer because dogs are loyal and friendly. And then, you can ask even a more difficult questions. What are 2 reasons that a dog might be in a bad mood, which is, again, a very complicated question for AI. And if you look at the answer, it was flawless. The AI said, 2 reasons that a dog might be in a bad mood, or if it is hungry, or if it is hot. So like really like great reasoning, AI is becoming to show reasoning, which actually scares a lot of people. And, but, it's still not there yet. For example, AI was asked a question, then counting what numbers comes before a million. And I mean, the AI got this question correctly, but this is where he got actually stuck. It asked AI a question, if I have 2 shoes in a box, put a pencil in the box, remove 1 shoe, what is left? And it said the shoe, which was obviously wrong. So AI has immense abilities, but it's still not there yet to completely outcompete a human being. But I mean, this is a very difficult process if you think about it. Now, if I ask you, imagine there's a shoebox, what your head does is basically creates a 3D image of a box. And if you put a pencil in the box, you have to imagine there's a pencil and you have to create a 3D image of a pencil. So it is really a complicated process that AI has to do. And the fact that it's getting to this point is actually really amazing. So anyways, now we get to the real part where we will be talking about the consensus, right? If we break it down historically, what we know so far is that historically people get unemployed, they get angry, some of them protest, attack factories or owners, right? We can start to see that technological employment is real. It's a phenomenon that is admitted by economists, right? So now the question is, okay, if it can affect us, how much? Right. So the question is, will the number of jobs increase with the Industry 4.0 technology, or will it decrease, or will it stay neutral? Right. So this is the question. And I really wanted to find a very honest answer, an in-depth answer. I didn't want to go with all the pop stuff that, we're all going to get employed. I really wanted to get a consensus from a scientific point of view from a lot of economists. So here we go to the first question. If we look at a lot of institutions, like Oxford, World Bank, McKinsey, OECD, which are really well-renowned institutions, really powerful institutions. A lot of great minds are working there. They give very scary numbers, like 40% of work in America are at risk of, being replaced by automation. 2 or 3 jobs might be susceptible to automation. Really big numbers. And these are institutions which have a lot of smart people working, and they do obviously their empirical analysis. There's even like this great paper by Frey and Osborne, which has over 8,000 citations, which says that 40% of the jobs are just at computerization, and they're saying that robot population will be bigger than human by 2032 or something. However, there's sort of a problem with these numbers. It is because these numbers are probability, and probabilities are great to measure uncertainty. However, probability is still a probability. It is something that can happen, or it might not happen, right? So for me, that's not good enough to fulfill my curiosity and to fulfill the answer that I'm looking for, so that I could sleep at night calmly. And when I look at research, I actually see a lot of economists pushing back on this myth that we're all going to get automated completely, right? So a lot of economists they're saying that a lot of new professions are coming in that are related with big data, AI, additive manufacturing. Some professions that did not exist before, like social media marketer, exist now, which never existed before. So the answer is a lot more complicated. And this is where I'm going to give you some introduction about compensation theory, as I promised before. But I'm not going to go too in depth, because this is a very highly complicated mechanism. But I want you to understand, because it will really give you insights of how the economy works. So one of the first problems when we talk about automation is the syllogism of fixed volume and no change, which basically is sort of like this. If you automate workers, that's if they get unemployed and nothing else happens, which is untrue, because if you automate workers, then you increase your productivity. If you increase your productivity, you can make cheaper goods. If you can make cheaper goods, then people might buy more of your goods, or they save their income, and the leftover budget can be invested into other goods. And if for other goods demand increases, then that other company must hire more workers. And at the end of the day, this compensation mechanism is so strong that you have an equilibrium. There's also an investment mechanism in compensation that is happening. For example, if you want to automate workers, what you have to do, right? Well, you have to have a company that creates machinery. Well, that company needs to hire workers. That means they increase the demand for labor, right? There's even a reverse rollback effect, where if you lay off a lot of workers due to automation, the labor price goes down. If it goes down, then incentives to invest in labor saving devices goes down as well, so you can hire more workers. So even this reverse rollback is very powerful, and I will show you some examples. So another thing that the lens that I really wanted to analyze is the micro, meso, and macro levels of different implications on the number of jobs, as well as process and product innovation. And I will show you how everything really nicely goes into picture and really can give us a really insightful answers about automation, Industry 4.0, and number of jobs. So the thing that you have to understand about product and process innovation, they are sort of two distinct things. The first one is, you want to make from this kind of old phone, you want to get to the new phone, right? This is product innovation. In order to innovate a product, you need some bright minds to do it. You need smart people who knows technology, who can create these amazing cameras or touch screens. So product innovations, you sort of add new features, and it really is a strong impact on the job market. And I will show you why in a little bit. And while the process innovation is like you innovate, how efficient something is being done in a very plain language, right? So if you carry potatoes or something, and you make robots to carry those potatoes, you sort of increase productivity and efficiency of the whole process. So these are two very distinct things. So now you'll see how everything connects. So first of all right, on a micro level, I've collected many authors, many scientific scholars who are really famous for their work, who analyze companies that are implementing innovation, and we track them whether employment increase in that company or decrease in that company. So as you can see here, process innovation, and if they increase their products, and this goes employment increase, and product innovation, this goes also employment increase. What you can see clearly all of the research articles on a micro level that analyze a company says that if you innovate despite product innovation or process innovation, in all cases, you hire more employees. So you innovate technology, you hire more people. Technology does not unemploy people, it's the opposite. It helps to create employment because companies need smart people to come in and innovate, right? So all of these articles are sort of a consensus. Very interesting, like completely opposite from all the like pop media culture that is saying that we're all going to get automated. All the research, empirical evidence is completely opposite. Now, there's, however, a big but here, right? If we take two companies, right? There's a Blockbuster company and a Netflix company, right? The Blockbuster company, which was a huge company. If you don't know what it was basically a DVD company where you can go and rent out and buy DVDs. It was extremely powerful, very, very successful. It employed over 84,000 people. It had 9,000 stores. And the situation, the sort of the story goes that Netflix one day came to Blockbuster and said, look, do you want to buy us? And the Blockbuster said, no, we don't like you at all. We don't see promises, we don't see anything good of your technology. But it ended up that the Netflix outcompeted Blockbuster, and in 2013, Blockbusters went bankrupt. And now Netflix is doing the service that Blockbuster did, but is doing in a more digital way, and with using AI and using digital technologies and stuff. Now, here's sort of the nuance. Although on a micro level, when you analyze a company, Netflix, right? If you look at it 5 years ago, yes, Netflix increased their employee size to 9,000 from 6,000, maybe for 4,000. Yes, on a micro level, it increased in their employee size. However, compared to what Blockbusters had, it's 8 times even more smaller what the Blockbusters had. Really interesting stuff. So now the question is, maybe yes, the companies that innovating do hire more people, but on a sector level, the whole sector shrunk. That might be sort of an idea, right? Okay, that might be the case. So let's do a different analysis. Let's throw away the micro analysis. Let's say micro is untrue. Let's go at the meso, sectoral level. So I found these kind of studies that did analysis on a sector level. What happens when companies innovate, implement new technology? Do they increase jobs or do they decrease the number of jobs? And this is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? On a macro level, consensus is very clear. On a sector level, like healthcare, whether it's real estate, finance sector, whether it's the whole digital technologies like Netflix and Blockbusters, right? So we now start to see a sort of divergence. On one side, we see that that employment decreases in certain stages by these researchers, but there's empirical analysis on a sector. Some of them, say that, for example, Germany, which innovates a lot of its car making and like BMW and Mercedes, they actually the sector increased the number of employees that they employ. These researchers as well sort of says that, it increased not so much like the Berger et al. Finding, but it sort of generally increased. So now we have a little bit of divergence, which is very interesting, right? And the finding is, this is why I presented you the product innovation and process innovation. In many of the empirical articles, what actually was the crucial determinant, whether you will increase more jobs or decrease, is whether you did a product innovation or process innovation. It's sort of like a tug of war. Like if you did a product innovation, then that sector as a whole hired more people. However, if you did process innovation, then the sector hired less people. The number of jobs decreased. Sort of a tug of war. Which one are you innovating? Right? So very interesting findings for sure. There also was a finding by Bezin who said that at the early stage when you implement the technology, sort of we see that the technology increases the demand for labor. But as time goes on, that sort of effect lessens over time, and people are getting and more people are getting unemployed due to this technology. And he sort of gave three examples that he analyzed. He analyzed U.S. steel industry, U.S. automotive industry, and U.S. cotton industry. And basically, by taking all other factors, he said that the technology at first actually employed more people than decreased, and it happened sort of very similarly through all other industries. So that's also interesting finding that product innovation, process innovation plays a big stake here. Time plays a big stake. Meso level, micro level is different. Okay. Now you would say, look, micro level is not good enough. Meso level is not good enough. We need macro level because sure, some sectors might decrease their number of jobs, but maybe those people go to other sectors, and as a whole, on a macro level, all is well and good. That might be true. So let's look at the evidence. Well, sadly, or I mean, not sadly, but fortunately, a lot of economists say that, look, on a macro level, the jobs increase when you innovate. When companies innovate on a macro level, country-wise, it actually increases. And sort of these researchers that I found, we had a consensus for sure. I might have missed some of them, but a lot of these are very prominent research papers that I managed to read. And I mean, sort of this Alter and Solomon paper, he said that on a macro level, like labor productivity, if you increase by 10%, employment increases by 2%. He did find in certain sectors, like labor productivity, if you increase, employment fell, but in certain sectors. But the spillover effect from one sector of labor force moving to the other sector as a whole on a macro level is sort of, there was an equilibrium at the end of the day. And, the way this whole compensation mechanism works, a lot of researchers are saying is sort of like this. If you imagine there's a labor pool, initial labor pool, and you are technological development, right? Well, you need new professions who can do, you need new labor who can come in and do this technological development, and this can represent a new labor. So if you look, if you hire more people who can create this machinery and technology that can automate labor, obviously at the first they will start working with the initial labor pool from here, and they will work together. So after the technology is developed, they will go to complete automation. Let's assume that is true, right? And obviously, that's those people that will get automated by these people who create the technology, right? Some of them might be permanent unemployed. Some of them will go reskilled. Those people who are reskilled, they will join the labor pool. But as a whole, on the long term, because the products that they innovate, the efficiency, there's gonna maybe hire more people from other countries, like Germany, who's innovating a lot, is gathering a lot of people coming from other countries too. At the end of the day, on the long term, we can see that actually the evidence goes clearly to say that employment increases due to technological innovation, which is interesting finding. And again, if you look at the natural unemployment rate, this is sort of another number that is crucial to understand. Natural unemployment is sort of a long-term unemployment ratio. This is how we can look at it. The natural unemployment, number, what it says that if you look at this, natural unemployment is sort of a curve in blue. It's almost always stayed below 5%. Surely, I mean, on the short term, there's a lot of fluctuation for the labor market, and some of it is of cyclical, some of it may be due to technological, implications and technological shocks. But as a whole, in the long term, the natural unemployment rate always stayed below 4%. And another interesting finding is if you don't believe the micro studies, if you don't believe the meso studies sector level, if you don't believe the macro levels, I managed to find regional level studies. Now, regional levels, they analyze regions, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in US, and there are a couple really big studies by Blaine and Ludwig who analyzed over 402 zones. And we have also, generally speaking, we see that innovation increases jobs. And that's why we see a lot of people from poor countries actually going to US or Germany, because there's so many jobs here and we need so many people and STEM field graduates and so forth. So it seems that innovation is a very powerful thing. Sure, there are some regions that got, unemployment decreased, but as a whole, we start to see sort of a consensus emerge that actually, unemployment increases when you innovate. And obviously, there was a Gregory study that analyzed over 240 regions in Europe, and he even calculated by like 3 effects of how innovation affected unemployment. So the first one is sort of like crowding out the workers, right? You create machines, you create technology, you implement it, and that's, automates work and people get unemployed. But because there's increase in demand for products due to lower prices, because you have higher productivity, that, that actually might increase the job numbers. And there might be even spillover effects that because your product is so great, people from other regions might buy it. And basically his calculations were like this. The substitution effect unemployed 9.6 billion jobs from those regions, increased demand in that product, increased jobs by 8.7 million jobs, and due to spillover effects, in total increase over 12 million, 4 million jobs. So a net change was 11.6 million of new jobs, right? So really interesting stuff. And like on a macro level, meso, macro, regional level, although we have some studies that say that unemployment might increase due to technological unemployment, we have a consensus of empirical evidence that it's not so much that it cannot like completely automate, cannot put people completely out of work for a long term. Now, despite this fact, technological unemployment still matters because it really creates a lot of problems for people. So one of the problems is obviously you have to relocate, right? If let's say your job is being automated and there's no more jobs in your region or your sector, you might need to move from your city to other city, leave your friends, leave your family, buy a new apartment or rent a new apartment. This is difficult for people. And it's challenging for every single one of us. There's also the question of the skills. If you can, yes, you can relocate, but you also need the skills to get a new job. Can the system teach you new skills? Are you able to focus yourself on your self-improvement and get new skills, right? All of this is very complicated. And as we saw before, technological unemployment can lead to some serious issues, like the protests that I mentioned before. And Feldman in 2013, he sort of made this study, and he calculated that sometimes technological unemployment might create a temporary job, unemployment for up to 3 years. So 3 years, it's a lot of time, right? If you don't have any savings, you can get really angry with the government, and the people, then they are getting angry. They can elect leaders which are very radical, right? So technological unemployment, although long term doesn't seem to be such a big enemy or problem, short term it does create us a lot of problems, and for example, I mean, this is a great example that a lot of politicians in US are saying, there's a 3 million job truck drivers in US, and Tesla unveiled autonomous trucks. And well, I mean, we know it's just a matter of time then people will get automated in the truck driving industry, and those 3 million truck drivers will need to find a new job. Now, a truck driver is what, a 56-year-old male with a high school diploma, and will he be able to learn new skills, whether it's programming, mathematics, or whatever? It's highly difficult to at this sort of age to shift your profession, your profession to a new, transition yourself into a new hobby, into a new skill set. It's very difficult, and these people might go and protest, which might create a lot of problems for our sustainability, social sustainability, and politics and so forth. And obviously, if you look at today's research, like McKinsey does a lot of reports, then to look at the labor force, and we sort of see a very similar phenomena than that my analysis of the macro, micro, meso, and regional levels. They asked McKinsey, a lot of the respondents, tell us when you adopt AI, how many jobs decrease or increase, and it's actually a very similar finding. You can see that some of the jobs, yes, like in some industries like automotive and telecom, jobs decrease, but in many other industries, actually, due to AI, they increase in employment. And there's also so in the long term, it doesn't it doesn't seem that it's so much of a problem. Now, there are some situations where technological unemployment might be more severe if there's a larger of group of people that need to relocate, right? So that might be a big problem to relocate 100,000 people, or like truck drivers that need to relocate like 3.5 million people. That is a huge population. That is definitely a problem. There's definitely the skill gap. If the skill gap is so big, like the truck driver who only has a high school diploma, to get new professions that require so much of like coding, which requires so much of mathematics, that's obviously very difficult. So that could actually create a technological employment more severe in certain countries. But and I was discussing with many of my colleagues about this. But could it happen, hypothetically, such situation that technological unemployment would constantly persist and persist and would exceed the rate of adoption by workers getting new skills? Now, it is extremely difficult to find such situation, right? It is extremely difficult, as we saw through, all of the examples. But some of them are really creating this hypothesis like, look, imagine truck drivers getting employed. What is the closest sector for them to go to work with? Well, you might say construction sector, but there's some studies say that the construction sector will be automated by about 35%. That's the probability that they're given. Okay, so truck drivers would like to go to construction, but construction sector is also automating. So now we have unemployed truck drivers, and now we have unemployed construction sector workers. And could they go somewhere else? What is the next sector? Some of the economists saying that this is something that might happen, that never happened before. It's sort of a new phenomena that could be sort of persistent for every single sector. I mean, everything is possible, I guess, in this world, but it's highly unlikely that such things would happen. And if you look at historically, computers, which did not cause mass unemployment. If you look at automotive industry, automobiles, they sort of pushed out the horse industry, but people are driving automobiles and they still have work, and the sort of technological push, it doesn't seem to push out all the jobs at the end of the day, right? So this is sort of my consensus. So what is the conclusion on the number of jobs? Micro, meso, macro, regional levels, highly unlikely that it would completely destroy the jobs. Some sectors might suffer, some might not, but in general, the consensus, like real evidence-based empirical analysis consensus, is really pushing back about this pop culture narrative that we're all going to get employed and we're all going to be gone soon. Okay, very interesting. The next question: since technological employment can cause skill problems, so what is the impact on skills, right? Because if you think about your career, you would like to know what skills should I choose, because so that I could sort of circumvent the whole technological unemployment, right? So this is a very interesting topic. Again, like the previous one, it's you have to dig deep. You have to dig really deep to find some sort of a answer that would be satisfying, at least on an empirical level. So the idea goes, this is sort of a stereotypical idea, that technology, automates people who are low skills, and high skills that are needed and demanded. Right? This is sort of a narrative that we're given, and we're always saying, focus on high skills and you'll be good and you'll be safe. Well, not so fast. Actually, it is a far more complicated thing, which at least I was really surprised by reading a lot. Okay, so let's think about it. I read a lot of studies, and I wanted to find the answer. Is it the high skills that get unemployed and automated, or the low skills? And of course, I found a lot of studies saying that, look, demand increase for high skilled workers which are not so much high skills, they get unemployed. So these studies, these researchers, really famous researchers, say that high skills are the way to go. However, these studies say that actually high skilled jobs can be automated, and I will show you some of the examples as well. So how come? How can this be? How can this be? and I was thinking about, and I actually found really good examples historically by research. Blacksmith. Blacksmiths were considered a very high skilled job. To be a blacksmith, you have to like really have golden hands and fists to make things, and it's so difficult and complicated. And actually, a lot of them were automated. There aren't so many of them left, right? Because of all the supply chains and robotics, and most of the blacksmiths who were very high skilled got automated. Like really interesting. I wouldn't think about this in such ways. Telegraph operators, which you would not consider the top high-end skill, but it was still sort of a middle class or middle class and upper skills jobs. They got completely automated, right? So very interesting. Digital technologies, telecommunication came in. We have like Elon Musk satellite technology will connect us through the satellite rather than antennas for around the world. So it seems that these two examples sort of show that, look, high skilled jobs or middle skilled jobs can be automated as well. It's not only low skilled jobs. So if anybody is saying that, look, low skills will only be automated, they're lying. They're lying, because that's not what historically happened. Sure, low skilled jobs get impacted a lot, right? There's Agriculture Automation, a great book written by Zhang and Francis. 41% of US worked in agriculture. By 2000, that share percent fall into 2%. Now, obviously, there's multiple reasons. Some of the jobs got outsourced to other countries, but according to the authors, a lot of it was also automated. You don't need to dig all the potatoes with hands. You have technology, you have tractors, special equipment that does for you, right? Log operators, that's sort of another low skill job that's what's automated. So yes, of course, low skills get affected by automation as well. The log operators were sort of moving logs so that sort of the ship could flow, and it was sort of a low skill job. But now we have a better ship technology, and that's sort of been sorted out, and they're no longer needed in our society. Another job that was completely automated is the elevator operator. There were like 67 jobs, 67,000 of people working as elevator operators, where basically you come in, they push the buttons, and you go up or down. Sounds very silly, but at that time it was a thing. And basically they got completely automated. So this is another example of sort of a low skill job that was automated. And another interesting situation, which really requires you to delve into the earlier historical mindset to understand the situation. It was the ATM machine. And then the ATM machine was first introduced to bankers. All the bank tellers, then they saw the ATM machine, they said, okay, we're finished. We're finished. The ATM machine is so smart, it gives money. We're not going to be needed anymore, because a lot of bank tellers, what they basically did is just, if somebody deposits money, they take in the money, or someone wants to withdraw the money and they give the money. That was the function that a lot of bank tellers did. And then they saw the machine. They were super frightened, super scared. And, it looks funny from today's perspective. ATMs, they do just one subset of activities that the banker does. But at that time, for a lot of bankers, it created a massive anxiety. But, ATM machine did not automate a lot of bank tellers, which is very interesting. And the Brookings Institute, their analysis sort of says, whether a thing will automate you completely really depends how flexible and what kind of other services you can provide. And bank tellers, rather going from accepting deposits and withdrawing money, they started to provide investment services and other stuff. And that's why they did not get completely automated. But the travel agents, they got automated by quite a lot due to digital internet technology. The whole AI right now can make the whole travel destination routes and book hotels and so stuff. So it really depends whether you can provide additional service. And this is another example. This is by a very great researcher called Autor. I mean, if you still don't believe me that low skill and other professions might be impacted, I just want you to look at this graph, right? The blue one is sort of a the numbers of people that got employed in certain industries, and you can see that like agriculture, sure, low skill jobs decreased from 1940s to 2010. However, you could also see that a lot of middle class jobs completely disappeared. Like especially if you look at the orange, the diagram. Yes, high skill jobs still remain, but a lot of middle class got completely automated by lots of technology. Service occupations, however, like a nurse, was not automated because it seems that it's very difficult to automate such technologies, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the future. But basically, the author, what he says, look, you should not think about high skills versus low skills. That is a wrong way to look at it. You shouldn't look at it from this perspective. The way you should look at it is whether the job is routine or non-routine. This is a better way to understand whether your profession will exist, right? And for example, like bookkeeping, it's very routine job. It's just inputting numbers. So you can automate that process, and some companies do, like clerical work example. But a nurse, right? A nurse provides a lot of services. First of all, when she comes in, it's very it's difficult to automate because you have, you talk to the patient, you ask how he feels, the whole human interaction, that is something very valuable. It's hard to make that with a machine. This is not a very routine job, and so I'm going to skip one. I'm going to this one. So what the author basically says that, computerization of routine jobs may actually simultaneously help to grow high education, high wage jobs and low education jobs at the expense of the middle wage jobs, as I showed you in the previous, graph. And I'll show some more evidence later. So this is very interesting because this is more to the truth that we're trying to answer. It seems that not necessarily low skills versus high skills is more routine versus non-routine. Maybe that is a better perspective or lens to look at it. And this is sort of another thing that he did. The author analyzed through the perspective of routine and non-routine jobs. And this is basically what it is, like personal care, right? Like I said before, it's highly difficult to automate what a nurse does. Right, there's difference of kind of drugs that they need to inject in their patient, and really, have to talk and speak how he feels. High school jobs also quite difficult to automate. There's like professional technicians, sales, but the hardest hit in terms of this routine, non-routine, have been really hit by operators, production workers, and office. So sort of we have this sort of the middle class of the jobs that are being automated the most. If you want to look at from a country perspective, right? From a country perspective, we sort of see a similar things. The middle paying jobs are vanishing because they are, a lot of them are very routine jobs, while the low paying jobs in most of the countries are actually increasing their wages. The wages are growing, especially the high paying jobs. And again, another example, if you still don't believe me, is imagine you need to install an air conditioner in your home. Now think about it. What kind of complicated process this is, right? You have to drive to the house. You have to take the equipment. You have to take a ladder. You have to drill, and you have to look at the whole air conditioner is horizontal and fits nice, and you have to connect the wires. It is extremely difficult. But if you're just withdrawing money back and forth, which could be considered a more middle class skill job, it's very easy to automate with ATM machine, right? So this is what is very important: non-routine versus routine jobs. So this is what the author actually found. And there's also another situation that is emerging today. Krasinski is another researcher who's saying, what, with today's technologies, yes, routine and non-routine jobs, but what he's saying is with today's technologies, even routine and non-routine jobs can be automated. what actually depends whether a routine or non-routine job will be automated is sort of like a policy of the company, policy of the management. And I'm going to show you some examples. Like this is a GPT-3 example. A lot of programmers are considered high-skilled jobs. However, with GPT technology, which I showed before, the artificial intelligence that answer the questions, in the future, you will be able to input words, what kind of app you want, right? I want an app which has red color or blue color and does that and has a feed like Instagram. You press a button design and AI does it for you. So a job like a computer programmer, which was non-routine, highly complicated, highly skilled, can now be actually automated. There's another funny example which I found on the web. This guy actually proved that you can even automate a barber, a hairdresser, right? Something that is very non-routine. We all have different hairs, and the hair is very complicated, and there's different kind of haircuts. But if you truly want it, with today's AI, computer vision, with today's technology, you know what? You could probably automate it. But the management would really need to direct their resources and funding to this technology. So we get into this sort of debacle again. Okay, so non-routine jobs were sort of the thing which is hard to automate, but some portion of non-routine jobs with today's technology can be even automated, right? So even in logistics, there's a lot of, especially in China. China is really ahead of us in this kind of technology. Like logistics can be done with robots that bring back and forth, which was also in some sense not a very routine job, but the barcodes and being able to scan it and put it back is becoming something that can be automated as well. So we get to a certain point. So what is exactly that cannot be automated with today's technology? And basically what a lot of researchers are saying is sort of like tacit knowledge. This is sort of a class which is very abstract of skills, like innovate. What does it mean to innovate? Be innovative. It's very abstract. It's not something that can write on paper. It is not something that you can codify, right? To innovate is sort of a very chaotic process that goes in our heads. So it is very difficult to automate such a thing. Leadership as well, what it means to be a leader. You're going to write to the AI sort of a set of rules. So it's very hard to sort of, automate that. Humor, how to be funny. It's very hard to write such a thing. And this was another McKinsey study done where we talked a groups of professions, and they asked a lot of experts. So what kind of professions will be growing in certain countries by 2030? I think that was the year. And they asked, for the groups, what can people expect? Where should people focus there? And for example, creatives like designers, artists, a lot of experts said that most likely in most countries, the jobs will be growing in this regard. Technology professionals for sure, right? They are the ones who invent artificial intelligence. They are the ones that automate people and replace people's jobs by technology. So for sure, in most of the countries, this will be growing for sure, at least by the expert opinion. Teachers, yeah, I mean, teachers is still a thing, although we start to see a contested terrain with YouTube. I learned a lot online. There's like the whole MIT open courses that I could read, which has the top level Nobel Prize winner scholars, and they give them lessons. And I find it very useful, sometimes better to learn it than in person. But still, a teacher is something that you can ask a question, have an interaction. That still means a lot. So the teachers will probably still be growing in the majority of countries. Managers, executives, again, if somebody has to lead a company, somebody has to make a strategic decision. So it seems that managers will be the ones who are directing the company. Still, AI will probably not take over the job. Care providers, for sure. Our population is aging. As I said before, very difficult to automate. We have different pains, which are very hard to diagnose. So we really need these kind of people, and definitely this is something that will be growing in most of the countries. Office support, Not so much, not so much. I mean, there's even like a chatbot technology where if you don't know if somebody gets stuck, you can call and you will be able to speak with AI, and AI can answer most of the primitive questions. So office support will probably lose a lot of jobs in the future, at least according to experts. Predictable physical work, super in danger, right? If something goes on, like routine job, as I mentioned before, it can be automated very easily with artificial intelligence. So be very careful for that. Customer interaction, again, I've seen a lot of restaurants making automated technology where you don't have a waitress. You just input the numbers when you want to pay, or you can take the whole dish yourself. However, we still see a lot of restaurants that have a lot of service workers that provide food and stuff. So this is sort of like very hard to say which direction will it go, but there's still a thing, and customer interaction is sort of a low skill and middle skill job. So we'll see how it goes. Right. So the hype of artificial intelligence, right? A lot of things already happen in artificial intelligence, and the question is, how much more the field will actually develop, right? It is a very big question because maybe everything that artificial intelligence promised already been delivered, because artificial intelligence was created in the 1950s and the neural networks were integrated today, and how much better they can be. It's really hard to say, but there's a lot of good examples of the hype, like the space thing, right? And obviously I was born in the 1990s, but when the first man landed on the moon, everybody was like, okay, that's it. We're going to live on space. Like 1990, there were ads running out on American TVs. We're going to have bases on the moon, maybe bases on the Mars. None of it happened. None of it happened at all. This was overstated promise. And another example, this is sort of an image of a plane presentations to investors. And you can look how we look at the plane when the first thing, then this was the first time we saw it. And they saw that the plane can fly, that the human can fly in a plane. They were going crazy. They were going crazy. I mean, they thought, okay, that's it. Horses are dead. Cars are dead. We're all going to be flying. And how can I prove this to you? Well, here's an example. There was a Hillerbrand company where they made posters about how the future humanity will live. And because of that invention of a plane, everybody was saying, look, we will be flying. We'll be flying all around the world, and we're going to have restaurants in the air, and you will be flying, and you can, order some food or wine or whatever, and you can pick it up. But as we all know, none of it really happened. The concepts that were provided that we're all going to be flying in such planes really sort of got stuck for a lot of years. I mean, obviously the plane got eventually developed, but the things that we will be, lonely flying, single player flying stuff, but it never really happened. So if you look at patterns of artificial intelligence, they're actually decreasing right now. So is this sort of the end? Maybe we did this, maybe we had this big explosion and now it's going to be gone. There's another example, like a number of research programs for artificial intelligence. There aren't that many around the world. And to create, like what they say, AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, it's highly complicated. Are these people enough to create such a thing? I don't know. Obviously there's not so many people here. So, we'll see how it goes. So I guess I will stop here because I'm over an hour. And obviously, if anybody has any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. As you can see, it's a very complicated topic. There's a lot of nuances. It's so forth. But yeah.
Dear Andrius, I see that we have a question from Muhammad about what sort of technological absorptive capacity would be required for Industry 4.0 era.
Could you tell me what do you mean by absorptive capacity? Do you mean how should we have, what kind of skills should we have enough to be able to? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Andrius, and a really interesting presentation. So absorptive capacity, like for example, when we collaborate with the other organization, with the other firms, and we absorb the knowledge of, we absorb the tacit knowledge, we absorb the explicit knowledge in our processes, in our functions. So likewise, what sort of technological absorptive capacity we would need in order to grasp and comprehend the abilities of Industry 4.0 technologies, and to realize those capabilities in our functions as an output?
Yeah, that is a great question, I guess. I mean, it really depends on which direction you want to go. If we were talking about artificial intelligence, AI basically is mathematics, statistical modeling. So that would require a lot of STEM fields and knowledge. And STEM fields, it's really scary because the STEM field knowledge is actually decreasing. I have a slide somewhere as well, but I also see that in Lithuania, we are at the lowest level of mathematics that we have ever achieved in Lithuania, which is very bad. And if you want to use AI or develop AI, or to put that technology into manufacturing, to put that technology into supply chain, if you want to absorb that technology, well, you have to have engineers who knows the STEM fields very well. And that is something that might be lacking. A lot of young children want to be influencers on Instagram rather than study engineering. So that is one thing. But it is also very interesting that we have a very monopolistic technology. All of this artificial intelligence, if you look sort of the roots where it's coming from, is basically coming from just a couple of organizations. It's Elon Musk, Amazon with the whole AWS, let's say Apple as well. You can name like 5 more or something. So they're sort of giving you the direction, what you should be learning. Now, whether you will be able to absorb that technology is very difficult for me to answer, but countries, I see that a lot of like big renowned organizations are really pushing countries to focus on such technology. And we even have this artificial intelligence AI center here developed in Lithuania, Kaunas University of Technology, that is trying to absorb that technology because it is truly immense. It's truly immense. And yeah, I mean, that's all I can say right now. Definitely, if I would need to give a more comprehensive answer, I would need to read up on the studies again. Thank you, Mohammed.
Well, first of all, thank you, Andrius, for a very comprehensive presentation, putting some historical perspective on it. I didn't appreciate that Marx was not on the picture with Adam Smith and Ricardo there. Anyway, I have a series, not a lot, but a couple of issues that I'd like to raise with you, obviously very much relevant to what we are doing. One of them has to do with polarization, which you did not touch, in my view, adequately. And that is the Mac jobs versus Mac jobs. Mac meaning Apple jobs, McDonald's jobs, right? So what we have is what people call the Uberization of skills and labor, which means what? We have lawyers acting as Uber drivers or working as as barmen in a Starbucks. Okay, so the issue is this: if you look at the leading literature, author, MIT, kind of some of the people you mentioned, this is a major issue. Okay, and I don't know what might be. Is it an issue of de-skilling? Is it an issue of these people being permanently out of labor, out of the work process? You mentioned Brynjolfsson. Brynjolfsson actually gives this metaphor that we are like horses. We are on the way, the historical way of horses. Horses were the main power of production in the 19th century. Human beings were in the 20th century and so on. This is a very depressing view. So I was wondering whether you can say a couple of things on that. The second issue, which you sort of brushed easily aside, was the issue of the regional implications of skills. You kept mentioning Germany as attracting top brains from Romania, from Lithuania, from Poland, and I don't know where else from, okay? You cannot say this has no implications for the regions who are losing these brains. Okay, which means effectively that we're seeing here poles of growth and innovation and development and poles of stagnation, right? Which probably mean, effectively, if you look at the map of Europe over the past 400 and 500 years, not a lot has changed in terms of the developed areas, the underdeveloped areas. Second, and the final point is this. It's a more philosophical point. Technology is not a neutral thing. It's a strategy. It's a weapon. People who develop technologies have certain objectives. They do not develop technologies just for to be cool, okay? So I was wondering whether you can give us your view on what the objectives of these technologies behind the Amazons of the world, behind, you know, the people who corner markets very, very seriously, and what might be the problems behind it. Because let's face it, I don't believe many people would disagree here that technology is not something that is neutral. People who design technologies have certain objectives that they do them. They are like when you design weapons, okay? You have certain types of objectives. So thank you very much. I know it might sound very big, but a few words on each of them I would greatly appreciate. Thanks.
Yeah, I think like for sure. You open the Pandora screen, I guess. This is like the income inequality, the income polarization, the whole digital divide. This is such a huge and deep topic that, you know, we can probably dive in with the whole IN4ACT team. And we were actually with my colleagues writing a paper about this, and we were talking about income inequality, polarization and stuff that is going on, because it's evident, like author, if you read it, basically you have a gap. The middle class, in many cases, are going out, completely getting automated. So you get low skills and you get high skills. And because of that, there's a huge income inequality, right? So the richer might be getting more money, the poorer, the middle class might be disappearing, and only the low class will be left with a smaller kind of wages going on. I mean, obviously, all people from the middle class, if they get automated and if they become nurses, in general, the nurse wages will go down, and the nurses will be worse off than prior, than the middle skilled jobs existed. So this is like a huge another topic what we can talk about. Obviously, we could probably make another set of discussion about this, and there's lots of research papers that I agree upon, because income polarization is really big stuff. And what's scary about this is sort of that you have a couple of major companies that hold all of this technology, right? So you have like MIT, and it's sort of giving us direction that, look, AI is being developed like this. And if I want to, I will give this technologies for you to use. But if I don't want you, you don't have the newest technology. So as a small business, you can even go bankrupt or go automated. So income polarization, I totally agree, Takis, there's so deep, so problematic in so many cases, for sure. Other stuff, regional. I touched a little bit, although I was more going to understand whether it's going to be numbers of jobs increase or decrease, but regional stuff, I did mention a little bit the relocation stuff, which is again might be brain draining a lot of people. Like a lot of people from Lithuania might move to UK, which are very good mathematicians, and we might lose those peoples. And sure, like unemployment might be at equilibrium, but the region development might be in a very bad shape. So this is like another Pandora screen that even research papers can focus on. And technology, yeah, of course, it's not neutral. In the second sort of subsection, I also wanted to say that one of the problems for labor market is that technology is not regulated. The competition between artificial intelligence and technology is not like, and human beings are not regulated. So even if you decide to learn a new skill, because artificial intelligence is not regulated how it competes with a human, by the time you learn something, you might get automated again. So this is like another big problem, and technology could be used in a bad shape and good shape for sure. It's sort of like AI is in today's world are like the means of production, and whether, you know, Facebook can shift their algorithms to completely make us hate each other politically. It can shift an algorithms to make one business to be more successful, other business less successful. Like this is like another Pandora screen that we probably can make another presentation about it. So I totally agree. These are very serious issues that Takis mentioned. Scientists should be working on them for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it what I can address right now.
Thank you, Andrius. Don't worry, we can organize another seminar for you, okay?
Okay. Thank you. Very kind of you.
All right, thank you.
Hello, I'm sorry, actually, most probably I'm not an expert in this field because I'm more interested in change as a scientist rather than technological change. However, I've been quite involved in various changes. And we were talking about the regional changes. So actually, I'm quite interested. You were talking about Industry 4, referring to those 7 actually technologies that are applied to Industry 4. But yet now we more and more start talking about Industry 5 and we're actually moving on. So in US, they hardly ever use Industry 4. It's actually more a German term. They refer to as advanced technologies because the technology is actually moving so quickly and it's always advancing itself. So they're not really attaching to the term Industry 4. That's one. And if we take US actually as a country, as a region who's very developed, that has a very advanced technology, we can actually see what is happening in their labor market. And we can actually see what impact those technologies do have. So that would be my comment.
Yeah, thank you. Great comment. We're actually wrote a paper that is sent to this famous journal, and we did an analysis, how many US papers are coming about Industry 4.0, and we thought that it's going to be very small because it's not popular, but it's actually quite substantial. Sure, Industry 4.0, majority of scientific papers about it are coming from Germany or Italy, but yeah, from US we're quite substantial. And yeah, they don't call it, and the European Commission started talking about Industry 5.0, and they're sort of saying that, we should be focusing on human centricity and stuff, but I don't know if like really something has really been done to help, because still AI is being developed. I see a lot of more people talk about AI ethics, how it should be applied. Better automation should be regulated, how many people you can automate with whole artificial intelligence. But, whether when people say that they're going to focus on human centricity, well, I hope they will, because up to now, the sort of AI has been unregulated and has been used in so many directions, and most of it to increase the profits for a lot of companies. And US labor market, it's a very serious issues. The income inequality that's going on in US, that's only like 1% of people own like 70% of all wealth in US, like staggering figures. And the protests that are happening in US. So there's evidently there's like digital divide between the technology and all the technology. For example, like AWS is a platform that if you want to use artificial intelligence, you basically have to use, and the provider is sort of like a monopoly coming from Amazon, and which is also very scary. It sort of has the technology and decides who can use it and who cannot use it, as Takis mentioned. So I hope they will focus on Industry 5.0. I hope AI will make our lives better. I hope AI will be more ethical, and I hope the MIT is actually writing about ethics of AI. So I hope that they will do something, because not so much is being done, and that's why the need of Industry 5.0 right now is coming into play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, so no more questions unless there's okay.
Sorry, maybe just one more question if no one else has questions. So for me, to be honest with you, I've been thinking the other day, because I have 2 children, and I start to realize that programming will probably have to be the 3rd language, because technology is advancing so fast and it's taking part in all kind of jobs. If you were a doctor, you might need robotics to be able to perform operation. If you are a lawyer, most probably in the future, you would need a paralegal to write the contract. You're gonna have a program where you look for words that will create you a text. So technology will become very important. What do you think about that?
All right, so we can talk about this a little bit. I don't know how do you translate it in English, but we can call it like the Godfather. He's a neurosurgeon, and a new device came into our healthcare system. It is a device called Gamma Knife. I think that's how it's called, the Gamma Knife. Basically, it can operate your brain with infrared rays, and you don't need to cut the whole head and take out the tumor. So, for example, for my godfather, who is a neurosurgeon for 40 years, he might get unemployed, or he has to learn how to program that stuff. So the old stuff, I personally think every single child, when he becomes 18, he should not only learn one foreign language, as you said, programming should be like the third language. And every single child should know how to program, create their own website, like really simple stuff, create their own app, right? Every like digital literacy will impact everything. Like economists, I started using AI, and I'm getting such interesting results. And if you're using old methods, if you don't know how to program, those economists who don't learn how to program might be obsolete. Other professions as well. So it's sort of like, either be, there's sort of a saying, be hunted or be the hunter. So be the programmer or be programmed. And I think programming is a huge thing, and everybody should learn it. And I think there's a lot of fear and scaring, that is something not for me, that is boring. I think we should sort of destigmatize this sort of thing, that we can actually learn how to program. It's not that so much difficult. It does require your attention and your focus, but you can learn. Everybody can learn it, and you will have immense capabilities and abilities in your profession and other professions as well. And yeah, for sure, definitely learn how to program. But some of the programming jobs are also being automated. Some of the programming languages are being thrown out. So be very careful when you learn which language to program, because some of the language will be obsolete very soon. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Maybe any recommendation actually you can give to all of us who listen to you. What shall we focus on, keeping in mind what are the trends, what are the scientists actually doing, where are we supposed to upskill ourselves? We just discussed that for children we need to teach them programming. What would you recommend for others?
Well, I think it's very individualistic. So tell me about yourself, Carol. What do you do? Where do you work?
I am the scientist, but currently, actually, I work with all kind of government projects. Okay. So I do strategy, analysis, research. So for me, I also understand that in my job, very much the IT skills are very important, because the old-fashioned way of doing research, gathering information is long time outdated. And if you want to do, you can do things quicker and faster with the help of technology. So for me, that's very, very clear. But how about, just in general, if there would be it would be advice, to invest in new skills and technology. What would your advice be for someone who is interested maybe in some personal development? Where would you focus? Just as general, not specific about, one or the other profession.
Do you know how to program with Python?
No, I don't. That's something actually on my list to learn.
So I will tell you this, Python is the most easiest programming language. Like if you look at C++ or other like programming languages, they are highly complicated, very difficult. But Python, it's made so easy, because if you look at the code, it's basically like reading the code. So it really opens up your mind what you can do. And I started programming with Python, and one thing led to another. Look, I'm using AI. Look, I'm collecting data with web scraping. Look, I can build an app. Look, I can build a website. And as soon as you learn those skills of programming, you will see how your life becomes easier. You will see, because you will spend a lot of time in your work, more and more in a digital space. right? Whether it's going to be digital meetings, whether it's going to be digital documents. And one of the things, if you want to be efficient, you have to learn automate things, automate the digital stuff, like collecting data. I like every single week I collect 100,000 of data, and I do it just with a press of a button, which used to take me weeks and years to go or make questionnaires. Now I press a button and I collect everything I need, and I can do research on that, right? And I can develop platforms, the whole programming. So I would say if nobody knows how to program, the best language to start that is very easy, that helps you to automate the boring stuff. There's even a book called Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. You can look at it. And when you learn that programming language, you will see how more productive, more efficient you will be. And you'll be really appreciated by the boss, if you want to start from there. So Python is definitely the language that is used by artificial intelligence. This is where the whole artificial intelligence packages and the whole development is going on. So definitely, it's going to be very easy. There's learning Python the hard way. It's a little bit like a scary name, but it's quite actually entertaining. So this is where you can start. And definitely, if you work for whole science and strategic management, with Python, you can do amazing stuff, and your boss will be very happy to have someone who can use AI. So anyone to start programming Python as the language, then you can think about what you want to be. If you want to be a developer website, you can go to JavaScript and stuff, and technology and so forth. But in terms, of skills, I actually myself, I'm relearning a lot of mathematics stuff, like differential equations, calculus 1, 2, and 3. But that's just for me because I like and I think the STEM fields are really needed if you want to understand artificial intelligence and stuff. Yeah, so that will be sort of my world advice to you. And yeah, I hope that your 2 kids will be famous artificial intelligence developers that can win a Nobel Prize in the future, Kara.
Well, thank you. I'm not really aiming for the, Nobel Prize, but I really hope there will be a happy people who will be able to achieve things quickly and have more time to enjoy their families and life, rather than, spend in the office collecting the data that could be collected, as you said, with just a click of the button. But so thank you so much for your recommendations. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for sure. Be happy. All right, anyone else? Or should we go to part 2 and we go to another 1.5 hour? Anna has a question. No, she's clapping. No, that's not a question, Anna, that's clapping.
Yes, it's just appreciation of the first part. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's wrap it up. I'm very happy to be here. Hopefully you got some insights. Maybe you will stop reading the pop stuff of Apocalypse, and maybe you will have some more grounded empirical evidence. Obviously, there are many issues, many topics, many different lenses that you can look at. And yeah, so I hope you will see we will see you together soon, because we'll have other webinars that you can join in, follow our website, and yeah, see you soon. Good luck.